Consistency is often misunderstood as stability. It feels like proof of control, evidence that the internal system is working. The subject does not rush, does not panic, and does not act impulsively. They move carefully, guided by patterns that have worked before. Nothing feels broken, which is precisely why nothing is examined. What fails here is not perception, but allegiance. The mind commits to its own previous conclusions as if they were contracts. Deviation begins to feel like betrayal rather than correction. Information is not rejected outright. It is quietly reshaped until it fits what already exists. The danger does not announce itself. There is no sudden error, no visible fracture in reasoning. The system remains calm, orderly, and internally consistent. That consistency becomes the evidence used to justify itself, and the process continues without interruption.
The subject is experienced, methodical, and self-aware. They are accustomed to evaluating situations with restraint. Their decisions have historically been reliable. This history becomes part of their identity, not just their resume. Accuracy and self-image quietly merge.
Initial judgments are made slowly and with care. They are based on observable patterns and prior outcomes. Nothing about the process appears flawed. The conclusion feels provisional but solid. It is held gently but not loosely. Over time, new data arrives. It does not contradict the original view directly. It simply introduces friction. The subject notices it, acknowledges it, and continues forward. The original conclusion remains intact, now slightly reinforced. What matters most is not being right, but remaining coherent. The mind favors narratives that preserve internal alignment. Once a conclusion integrates into identity, revision becomes costly. Changing direction no longer feels analytical. It feels personal. The subject does not ignore evidence. They contextualize it. They assign it a lower weight without conscious intent. The process feels rational, even responsible. After all, overreacting to every inconsistency would be inefficient. The blind spot forms here. Consistency begins to substitute for verification. Repetition becomes a proxy for truth. The longer a belief is held, the more legitimate it feels. Duration replaces accuracy without detection. The initial conclusion creates psychological momentum. Time, attention, and thought have already been invested. Reversal would imply that effort was misplaced. The mind prefers continuity over correction. Forward motion feels safer than reevaluation. Each small confirmation strengthens attachment. Neutral information is framed as supportive. Ambiguity is interpreted as patience rather than warning. The subject believes they are being disciplined. In reality, they are being consistent. The subject sees themselves as careful and rational. This self-image is stable and well-earned. Contradicting earlier judgments threatens that image. The threat is subtle, not emotional. It manifests as quiet resistance. Adjusting the conclusion would require acknowledging a flaw. Not a mistake, but a vulnerability in judgment. The mind treats this as unnecessary self-damage. Preservation feels logical. The identity remains intact. New information is not processed neutrally. It passes through an existing framework. The framework was built to make sense of earlier data.
Now it dictates what qualifies as relevant. Anything that does not align feels incomplete.
The subject believes they are being selective. They call it discernment. They believe they are avoiding noise. What they are actually avoiding is disruption. The filter tightens without awareness.
Time passes without immediate consequence. Nothing collapses. Nothing forces a stop. The absence of failure becomes reassurance. Delay is mistaken for validation. The subject interprets continuity as confirmation. If something were wrong, it would have surfaced by now. This assumption feels reasonable. It is rarely questioned. Time becomes evidence instead of context. The shift is almost imperceptible. The subject stops evaluating the conclusion itself. They begin evaluating only deviations from it. The conclusion becomes the reference point. Everything else is measured against it. At this stage, reversal would require reconstruction, not just of facts, but of internal narrative. The cost feels disproportionate. The subject continues forward, calmly. The system remains internally stable. There is no realization, no dramatic recognition of error, only a gradual narrowing of acceptable interpretations. The subject believes they are refining. They are actually closing. Intelligence does not prevent this failure. It accelerates it. The more capable the mind, the better it is at justification. Rationality becomes a tool for preservation, not correction. The system protects itself efficiently. The subject never feels deceived. They feel consistent. They feel aligned with their past reasoning. This alignment becomes the final validation. Accuracy becomes secondary. The failure is quiet and complete. There is no external pressure required. The mind maintains the structure on its own. Consistency replaces contact with reality, and the process ends without resistance. This pattern does not feel like error from the inside. It feels like discipline. It feels like patience. It feels like maturity. That is why it persists. The mind does not collapse here. It stabilizes. It chooses coherence over correction. And in doing so, it remains confident. Nothing appears wrong. This is not a breakdown. It is a preservation. The system succeeds at protecting itself. It simply protects the wrong thing.